Hey everybody, welcome to January 2021. It's been a crazy year. I thought I'd go back over the year, some of the things that happened, because I haven't spoken on this vlog for a while. I've been up to other things, and I took a bit of a break, and like I think so many of us, sort of refocusing, trying out different things, and either doing nothing and feeling whatever we're feeling, or getting really productive and doing lots of stuff. I sort of, it was a mixed bag for me. I think in some ways I got really lucky, especially where my career is concerned, and some of the stuff that I was working on, my projects and things, they all had continuance, they all sort of went on, and in fact, in a lot of ways, things kind of blew up and got really busy over the last year, which was amazing, and I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to be working with the people that I'm working. I'm working with some real smart people who just pivoted when this whole coronavirus thing struck. For freelancers, I don't know if this is the same for everyone. I don't know if this is like a bad mindset thing or something, but I feel like we're always kind of on the razor's edge of thinking this could go away. This could all sort of disappear tomorrow. It's always in the back of your mind though. It's not like a forefront thing. It's not like this is like an anxiety that's riding high. It's really weird. It feels like I can split my brain into two parts. One part is like completely focused on what I'm doing, totally in the moment and present, and doesn't feel any worry or stress or anything. And then there's another part that's like in the back. It sort of winds away and kind of goes, this is crazy. The year started out so different, 2020. In February I was in Berlin. Thinking back on it now, it seems so crazy, huge throngs of people, and these big events, rubbing shoulders with people, like really close proximity, which seems crazy now. And I came back so energized and I was ready to go. 2 weeks later, we were in full lockdown. For those who don't know, I'm type 1 diabetic. So we've been, my wife and I have been super, super careful with this. In the last 8 months or so plus, we've been to a restaurant once, and we've been to a cafe patio. The restaurant was nearly empty. I think we almost had a room to ourselves. And the cafe patio, same thing, there was almost no one. We had like 2 tables between everyone. And apart from a few socially distanced backyard visits, that's been it for the whole 8 months. Like I've not been out, every once in a while we'll go to a grocery store and then, going for walks. And it's been okay for the most part, like I'm a person, the studio life can get pretty weird. You get kind of squirrely after a while. And something that I always liked to do was get out, I'd get to a point where I could just feel it. I need to go and do something different. So I'd run out and I'd go and hang out at a cafe, or I'd go to a pub and just read a book or write in a journal or listen to some music, or just kind of enjoy the city and then walk around and just really casually. And then of course planning stuff with friends, and I've noticed, man, do I ever miss it. So something that struck me right out of the gate was how much this event was going to affect people's mental health. How much mental health is tied into your ability to be productive, to be part of society, to do creative things. I had a really powerful, profound experience myself with that. Within the first few weeks of the pandemic hitting and us going to lockdown, my wife and I started doing these regular walks, and we were doing it consistently every day. And I was feeling pretty good for the most part, As I said before in this video, at that weird sort of in-between moment where on one hand, I was feeling really good about everything, and then on the one, there's a little bit of, a buzz on the subsurface just sort of going by. And we were out for a walk one day, and I just felt this weird tightness in my chest, And it kept getting worse and worse, and I was having a tough time breathing, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I thought it was some sort of like a physical thing, like my breathing was elevated, and the chest tightness got worse, and I was having a tough time focusing my thoughts, and I was getting really panicked. And I realized at some point, I was having a full-blown panic attack. Now, that's not normal for me. In talking with a lot of friends over the course of this year, especially who do suffer from anxiety, I realized that I'm a person who, baseline, I don't feel anxiety most of the time, not the way the people that do suffer from anxiety have it. And so for me to go into a full-blown panic attack was a pretty surprising thing. So I had to really think about, why did that happen and what does it mean? And what I realized was, in the end, once the pandemic had started, I really got into following the news, getting really into Facebook and getting into social media a lot more. And I usually fence myself off from that stuff pretty religiously. I'm not on the news. I don't get up in the morning and get my dose of outrage as some people do. For that matter, I don't really even go on social media and scroll. I try to avoid it. I mean, it's a really addictive thing. I think we all have that to battle against, but that was the thing for me. I realized that it really had a pretty profound effect on my mental health. I mean, a panic attack. Wow, that's not something I was used to. So I thought to myself, you know what? I can't afford this. If I'm going to make it, if our family is going to make it through this year, I have to be on my A game, and I have to do whatever I can to, make sure that I'm clear, that I'm focused, that I'm feeling as good as I possibly can, so that I can stay creative and focus on the things that I need to do to, survive. From that point on, I really cut, not out, but definitely cut down on the social media, and I cut the news out. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, how do you know what's going on? How do you stay current? You need to, stay up to date with the news. For me, it's a big spectrum. I find some people are really too much into the news, and then some people are ignorant and they're not aware of anything going on in the world. I like to choose my sources very carefully, and I like to choose, and I'm really careful about the amount that I expose myself to. So of course I want to stay up to date, I want to stay informed, but I also know that just being informed all the time and really diving into things and getting into the issues, or even going to the point where you're arguing with people online, it doesn't actually solve problems. My thing is always, if I can do something about it, I'm going to do something, and if I can't, it's almost better not to know, right? I want to be informed, and if there's some action I can take, then I take it, So it really made me realize how important our mental health is, and that we have to take steps to protect ourselves from, the things that will put us in a bad state, because we need to be able to be focused, we need to be able to be creative and clear about what we're doing. Now, that said, the other thing that I became much more aware of this year is how different we all are. Our brains work very different ways. One person's, way to fix themselves or help themselves along is not going to work for everyone. So I say what I said before with total clarity about the fact that worked for me, and that's from my position and my baseline and what I feel like on a general basis. I know that that's not going to be like, oh, just do these things and you'll be better. Of course not. You need to figure out what works for you, and you need to seek whatever help without any prejudice. You shouldn't feel bad about needing help. That's actually something I struggle with a lot. I avoid asking for help at all costs, and I know that's not a good thing. It's something I'm trying to get better at. But so that was the other big thing that I learned this year, is that it's very difficult to understand really someone else's life, someone else's perspective in a real way versus your own. So one of the things that changed for me is the way that I give advice. And in fact, I sort of stopped in a lot of ways giving advice without full caveats that this is what worked for me, this is what I think works in terms of my perspective. But everyone is different, everyone's going to have to figure it out for themselves, and also balance things out for what works for you, what doesn't. So during this period, a good friend of mine came to stay with us. He was just in a position that was very detrimental to his health overall. So he ended up getting a COVID test and then coming and staying with us. And so we had this funny new little family unit that was really cool. And what I realized was kind of neat about it was that it provided what's called a pattern interrupt. It sort of took us out of the drudgery of the sameness of our days, which was starting to build up and become kind of a problem. And when he came and stayed with us, he provided that first little sort of influx of difference and unique sort of experiences, and having those conversations with him in the morning, and different things that we were doing that we would not normally do. But still, after a while, it took some time, but we sort of got to this point where that, again, sort of worked its way into a kind of drudgery, because your days in this pandemic just sort of run together, and if you're not careful, you're performing the same things over and over every day. And of course, that's not great for your mental health, and it's not great for creativity either. One thing that we came up with was this idea of having a night where we would get up in front of each other and perform or tell stories or read poetry or, show and tell kind of things. Like, what were we working on and what were we doing? We ended up calling it Salon Pandémie, after the old French style salons, where they would basically get together and do the same thing. And it was absolutely magical. It really put your brain into a different space. And at the end of the week, you look forward to that Friday night with not only excitement, but also a little bit of trepidation. Like, it got your blood going because you knew you had to get up in front of your friends and perform or read something or, do something that was a little bit out of your comfort zone, which was great. And it just ended up changing the energy so much. We would get together and we would dress up, get a little more fancy, as if we were really going to go out. We'd order some fancy food and eat it at the table. We'd have candles and the whole bit. Like, we really made it a thing. And then we would pay our bill and go to the venue, which was just the living room next to the dining room. And then we would, have a host, and the host would present the next person that was going to get up, and then we get up and perform and do all the things we were going to do. And it was just magic. It was amazing. So if you can figure out a way to do something like that in your own home, it really helps break up your weeks and your days, gives you something to look forward to. It's something safe you can do within your own home, and it does provide your brain with this new magical thing that is a little bit scary and a little bit out of your comfort zone. And I feel like if you can get this working for you, it's really going to change the way you feel about the drudgery of these days. Another thing for me was I realized that I am a person who really needs not only stimulation and together times, like I miss going out with my friends and I miss seeing people and being in different places, but I also really need to be alone. And that's one of the things that became more and more difficult to do. I don't know if anyone else has had that same experience, but the other weird part about this is that we're always with people if you are living in a unit. And you don't really get that total alone time because no one's going away to work or going on a vacation. No one's going anywhere and doing anything. And for me, it got to a point where I got a little squirrely. My wife finally came to me and said, look, do you want to get away for a little bit? I can help you make this happen. And it was one of the best gifts anyone has ever given me. I got to go away and stay in a mutual friend's cabin on Lake Huron for 3 days by myself, no other people around, and I just read and sat and drank coffee, wrote in my journal, and went swimming every day in Lake Huron and just sat and looked at the water, took photographs. It was absolutely perfection, and it was exactly what I needed. And again, it was that pattern reset. And being able to do that really helped, instill in me a newfound energy and a new sort of excitement about what I was doing when I got home. And it gave me that distance that I needed in order to be back in with other people in the unit that we were in. So this is something, this idea of a retreat is something I really want to bring forward into the coming years. And I think I want to try and do one of these things at least once every year, where I go off on some solo mission, some solo flight, and just focus on maybe nothing, maybe just sitting around and thinking for 3 days and just sort of emptying my brain. Maybe it's working on a project. There are these great artist retreats that you can go to where they're a little sort of communal thing. You get to rent a room and do critiques at night and interact with other artists that might be doing working in mediums that are completely different from your own. And that to me is really exciting as well. Just again, this idea of a pattern interrupt, to do something that is totally out of the normal. And the other thing that I'm trying to figure out for this year, going into 2021, when we're still in lockdown, when we're still in the pandemic, and it doesn't look like there's really any clear end in sight, how am I going to do that on a weekly basis, without this extraordinary thing of having to go somewhere and take a risk and, stay in a Airbnb or, a lot of these places are closed anyways and you can't. So I'm trying to figure out clever ways and interesting, creative ways to do that. So if you have any suggestions, please put them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. So finally, I spend a lot of time at the end of the year, as I always do, working on my goals. So I think I've mentioned this before, but I keep a document called Awesome Things, and it's a rundown of every great thing that's happened in the year. And it can be as simple as a really nice dinner out with someone, or a great conversation that I had, to an award that I won, or a festival I attended where something wonderful happened, or a career win. It's everything. And I really always encourage everyone to keep one of these documents because you forget so much over the year. You forget so much of the big and the small things, when you can look back over these things and see, wow, actually the year was pretty great, and it leaves out all the bad stuff that happened. We all know there was enough of that this year. Make sure that you record every time something great happens, and it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be the most amazing, mind-blowing thing. It can be a small thing, but it can be something that just gets recorded so that you have it at the end of the year. You see, here's a tally of all the great stuff that happened. For the goals, I think I finally managed to get it sort of whittled down. I've made other videos before about goal setting and how I try to crunch it down, and I always end up doing too much, stacking too many things. It gets overwhelming. And it's funny because at the end of the year, I still look back and I go, well, you know what? You still accomplished a lot of these things that you wanted to do. It wasn't as systematic as I'd like it to be, but it's still better than not doing it at all. This year, I think I've got it crunched down much more actionable stuff, much more measurable things. I'm excited about them all. I'm really excited. And the other thing I think I found, which I want to talk about in a future video, is this new way that I've been approaching my days in terms of figuring out what I want to do and then being extremely productive during the day. And it's a subtle little twist, but I think I might dare to say it's the best productivity hack I've ever found. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all in a future video. All that said, here's to 2021. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you're keeping safe and healthy, and I hope your families are keeping safe and healthy too. I hope you're finding ways to connect with people despite everything, and stay creative and stay, engaged and excited about what the future holds. To be honest, overall, I'm excited and I'm very much looking forward to this year. I'm going to look for those silver linings. I'm going to look for all the ways that we can make this wonderful, because there were lots of wonderful things that happened last year. It really made us rethink a lot of stuff and approach things differently. That is a good thing, because there was a lot that we do and we're doing that maybe wasn't working that well on all sorts of different levels. And right now we're in a massive period of change, good and bad and horrible, but I think it's just a transitional period, and I think we're moving towards really great things. So I wish you an amazing 2021. I hope it's brilliant. I hope it's full of creativity. And most of all, I hope it's healthy and safe. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.